Holy God, let my words be your words, and when my words are not your words, let your people be wise enough to know the same. Amen. When I was 10 years old, I accidentally practiced Sabbath. All right? You're supposed to laugh at something like that. So it was summertime, and I'd already gone to all the camps, the soccer camps, the outdoor camps, the music camps that I was going to go to, and it was a long time until we were going to go to the beach. And my friend John had just spent the night with me, and then he was going out of town, and it was late on a Saturday morning, and all of the cartoons were turning off. This was back in the days before you could find cartoons all the time, right? And I just realized how bored I was going to be. And so I went to my mom and I said, what am I supposed to do? I think I'm going to die of boredom. Spoiler alert, I didn't die. I'm still here. But she encouraged me to go and find something to do. But I couldn't. And so I did nothing. Well, I did next to nothing. I sat in front of a big picture window, and I watched as the birds flew in our backyard and the squirrels were hopping around and the wind was blowing. And later there was a thunderstorm that rolled through and made the branches of our trees dance in the wind. It was a beautiful thing that I happened upon this practice of Sabbath at such a young age. And I found myself returning to that very spot, and I still love that spot in my mom's house, where I can sit and simply be. Now, at that time, I was not familiar with today's gospel lesson, but even then, I was learning that though we humans are not made for the Sabbath is made for us and made for our healing. Christians, though, do not usually uphold Sabbath as a laudable practice. I think this stems back from in the early church when those ones who were following the way of Jesus rejected the Jewish mandate of a total prohibition of work, especially on Saturday. When Christ came, early Christians believed that he had fulfilled all of those ceremonial and other laws of the Old Testament. And while this makes theological sense to me, what our forebears did was they threw the baby out with the bathwater. Certainly, we do not need punitive laws telling us when we should or shouldn't work, like how the Pharisees were deriding Jesus' followers when they were picking the heads off of the grains, or when Jesus wanted to heal the man with the withered hand. Still, we as human beings benefit greatly from intentional times of rest and restoration. So let's examine some ways to incorporate Sabbath into your life, into our communal life. But first, let's clarify what we mean by Sabbath and why it's so important. The day known as Sabbath, which we inherited from our Jewish siblings, is Saturday. According to Exodus 23:12, there should be no work done. There's a total prohibition on work on that day. As Christians, we observe the Great Sabbath every year during Holy Week on Holy Saturday, the day right before Easter, when we remember Jesus resting in the tomb after all of his work of salvation was completed. When Christians proclaim that Jesus had fulfilled the law, freeing them from following all the ceremonial bits of the Old Testament, the religiously significant day switched from Saturday to Sunday, the day of resurrection. Well, that is except for some Christians. There are some Christians for whom Sabbath practices still apply. Seventh-day Adventists and a few other Christian groups still worship not on this day, but on Saturday. Plus, there are some called Sabbatarians. I promise I did not make that word up. Sabbatarians who still apply many of the Old Testament commandments about the Sabbath in their own lives. These are typically Scottish and English Calvinists who have prohibitions on work, deeming Sunday to be the actual Christian Sabbath. Even in our own culture, we can probably all remember a time when there were those things called blue laws. Do y'all remember that time? There's still some prohibitions, right? Meant to restrict activity on the day of resurrection. Historically, these have been some practices of Sabbath within the Judeo-Christian tradition. And yet these do not seem to capture the essence of what Sabbath is or what it can be in our current age. So let me do a little experiment. When I say time is blank, how do you fill in the blank? Time is money, right? Yes. Our culture often proclaims that cash is king and time is money. So let's fill every single second of every single day with opportunities to earn more and more dollars, to say, as the kids do nowadays, to get that bag, right? Nobody knows the slang. I'm looking at our few children that are in the congregation this morning. But this is this terrible way of our world. Now, I'm not against work. Purposeful work, we sometimes call vocation, is crucial to the health of our souls. But consumerism and rampant capitalism have made it such that even most of our pastimes come with a price tag. Want to watch something? It's going to cost you. Want to go somewhere? That's going to cost you too. Want to have a fun experience like going to a concert or a sporting event? Well, that's going to cost you even more. And if you think, well, I'll just simply do something pretty low-key, like just checking on my friends on social media, even there is a cost. Often now, when you do not see a price tag associated with an app or a service, the companies are actually making money off of you and your information. You have become the commodity that is being sold. Your information is being auctioned off to other businesses. So when the point of a system is to make money, then of course there will be insidious ways that people use to take advantage of that. Now, I'm not against entertainment or events, nor do I think social media is without its merits, nor should we throw out capitalism offhand. Still, our relentless ways require an overhaul. We're constantly going and going and going and never stopping to even take a breath. Sabbath provides an alternative way. It's a salve in which holy rest provides for our entire selves, body, mind, heart, and soul, an opportunity to experience true rest and, more importantly, restoration. The way I imagine Sabbath, it is a period of up to 24 hours when we reset our lives. We recalibrate our internal compass such that we are attuned to God and God's way of living, moving, and being in this life, on this journey. For some, it may mean abstaining from screens. For others, it may be intentionally watching something that they want to watch with their family. For some, Sabbath might be taking a break from cooking. For others, it might be intentionally preparing a meal for a family. What I am saying is that there's no one particular way to Sabbath. And yes, I'm using Sabbath as a verb here. With that said, I want to give you 3 ways to help in establishing some Sabbath practices in your life. So first off, number 1, begin and end any Sabbath time with prayer. Ask God to help you experience restoration in your life. Number 2, prepare ahead of time. If you look at what our Jewish siblings do, they will prepare all week to be ready for the Sabbath day. This can be helpful for us too. For us to fully enjoy restoration requires us to offload those things that might be nagging at us otherwise. You could even just write down those things that are popping up in that time to redirect you back to God. And finally, be gentle and open. Sabbath is not a competitive endeavor. It is a gift God gives to us even if we're not very good at it. So as you experiment with Sabbath, be kind to yourself and be open to how you might need restoration. One week, it might be actually doing nothing. Another, it might be reading something that fills up your soul. Another, it might be reconnecting with someone, a soul friend perhaps. Jesus tells us that Sabbath is not something we humans are made to excel at. Regardless, God gifted us with Sabbath. God even modeled for us a period of rest when laying the foundations of all creation. When we follow in this way, taking time to experience restoration of our body, heart, mind, and soul, that's when we practice Sabbath. And we find times to rest this summer so that we may continue to work together to reveal Christ's reign that is already at work among us. Amen.